and welcome to the Inglorious Bards review series part 1. We're doing something a little different. Normally we are getting into our crazy adventures of the Bards over many seasons, having a lot of great fun on our adventures. But this time we decided to go out and see the brand new Dungeons & Dragons movie. Came out, how long has it been? About a week, I think, about now?
Yeah.
About that.
Oh, not even that, right?
This weekend
about
was
4 days.
the release date.
Yeah, so at the time of this recording, it's been out just a couple days. We got together as a group, most of us, and just saw the movie. We have not talked to each other until the way back here now, and we are talking about Dungeons & Dragons 2023 Honor Among Thieves, directed by Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daly. So, what'd you guys think?
Honestly, I freaking loved it.
Yep.
I super did. Tim, what were you going to say? I cut you off. Same thing? Tell me it's the same thing. I took the words out of your mouth.
I was gonna say they must be like level 20.
That cleric certainly is.
Yeah.
Gosh.
There
Paladin,
were
rather.
a couple scenes where, comparing the legitimacy of actual gameplay, someone was overusing spell slots in a massive.
How many times can you use Wild Shape?
in
Infinitely,
one combat round.
Yeah.
Boing, 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 boing. So that was pretty crazy, but still a blast. Campy fun, just delightful interspecies relations. All that
Certainly
kind of fun
a,
stuff.
This first
like you
comment.
said, kind of a hit and miss with some specific roles, like the sorcerer and the wizard, and they actually say in the movie, I'm a player. They don't say barbarian necessarily, but like to see all of the classes kind of play out in a real setting is pretty cool.
I liked how they kind of incorporated in like actual D&D stuff, and subtly too. That if you're
Yeah, it
not a
wasn't-
D&D fan, you'll miss it. And it's
And
fine,
it's fine, right? You don't miss out.
and you won't really lose anything. But if you are a D&D fan, you'll know, Gust of Wind, and you'll know like a couple other spells in there.
It wasn't ham-fisted.
Yeah.
It wasn't someone's going, look, a rust monster.
Yes,
You could
exactly.
just
Yes.
see the rust monster.
But like-
directly.
Cube.
Yeah. Excellent execution of a gelatinous cube,
Yeah.
of a mimic, so many of the creatures.
Yes.
Did you hear
And-
the guys up top talking about Displacer Beast meat? There was a very subtle comment. It was like, have you ever tried Displacer
Yes.
Beast meat? And I was like, that's what they're called, Displacer Beast.
Something about a beholder, just another passing comment.
Right, the paladin, right? I've heard of him. Oh, he slayed a beholder with his sharpened gourd.
I did not I love the gelatinous cube, but it didn't move.
Yeah.
It didn't
did not
attack.
Oh, yeah.
It was a
Yeah.
static object.
It was held down.
That is the second movie I've seen in a theater with a gelatinous cube, and I never thought that would ever happen in my life once. Bizarre. Bizarre. Will there be a third?
I love the misidentification of a class too, which was the Lord of Neverwinter, the new Lord of Neverwinter, calling his sidekick a wizard.
Oh,
when in
yes.
fact
Yeah.
she was throwing around witch bolts like there was no end to the day.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So-
that's one of the weird credited things. She is credited as wizard, and they say wizard. I think he calls her a wizard.
Yeah.
But
She ain't no wizard.
usually it's
A red wizard.
witch.
Yeah.
It's usually the usual.
Well, it's
Might have
it's
been
actually the
some-
type of magic that they're casting,
Right.
and how they have that magic. But it seemed like the organization was called the Red Wizards, and I don't know if maybe they're,
Maybe something like that.
maybe they're a little
But
loose
it
on
fell
the
into the
definition of wizard.
It fell into the logistics of when you're creating a warlock, you get the pacts. And one of the pacts is a dark being or whatnot. So they did the shot of the room with the guy in the shadows
Yeah.
whispering to her. And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, her
It turns
patron.
out he might be a future planned out big bad.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
kinda-
Well, that's how I read into
yeah.
it. and-
No, I agree
but-
with your statement.
But
there,
I
for sure.
love the way they did some of that stuff.
There was a couple of things that I saw in the film as well that just made me absolutely giddy, in the same level of things that are hidden away. Mm-hmm. If you guys recall the fight scenes, I think 3 of the fight scenes that I saw, the ground around them and the rocks they were on changed shape. So when they were in the courtyard battle in the last one, everything was a square. They were all standing on squares. But when they were in the Underdark and the paladin was having the fight with all the assassins, they were stepping up on the stones. They were all hex stones. Every single one of the stones they were walking was a hex column, and I was like, it's a hex grid. It was so like just 2 seconds in, 2 seconds out, but it was so amazing.
The battle at the very end with the witch lady and that little town plaza thing. I mean, that's a battle map we've played on many times before.
And there was twice where I was like, "Oh, Avius," from like spells and from
Fire just
season
going
1.
everywhere, nondescript.
It was the ball that had the 2 people captured in it, and there was like a
What
big.
was that one?
There was, I forget the name of the spell, but I remember it was like a real pivotal battle,
It's sheer
and he like
vulnerability.
yes,
oh.
yes, and like you can't get in or out,
Yeah.
and that's something that we've seen in our season 1 campaign, and it was just neat to see it play.
Well,
And Meteor
let's
Storm
not
was
forget
awesome.
the Big B thumb battle that took place.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, Mage Hand versus Mage
Mage
Hand.
hand versus Mage hand.
I wanted to
that
yell
was-
out Mage Hand so bad, but
That
I
was
was
fun.
like, no.
Yeah, there were
I love it.
And then there were 2, and I'm like, Mage hand. No, I'm hoping to carry
Nice.
that along.
I think it's interesting to back up your point about the magic, Christopher. The character who played Simon, he says like in the beginning, like magic's not just this thing. You know, there's certain
You
rules.
can't solve
and
the world with
You
magic.
can't solve everything with magic, and they
So
kind
funny.
of do in a weird way. And again,
They don't actually. They use the bracers to dispel the
oh yeah,
magic.
that's true.
Mm-hmm.
They did. But yeah, his character was a sorcerer, but they weren't really attuning too concretely to like which wizard, sorcerer, or warlock. It seemed like they might flesh that out maybe a little better, but I didn't really have a
Yeah, they gave
issue
some
with it at
creative
all.
license to the.
yeah.
The rule of cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
The rule of cool exactly, but making him weak and until his pivotal moments, I think was an amazing character arc. I think the character arcs in this movie were splendid.
I love that. Right, his own magic. You saw 2 spells. He had 2 spells at the beginning.
Yeah.
It was the little flame finger and make everything smell like grass. Everything else.
Are those not both prestidigitation?
I mean, essentially, right? That's all it is. My 5-year-old can do that. But everything else required a magic item, right?
Yeah.
He had magic items on him all over the place that
Yeah.
he could use and keep working with, which is great. I did not expect to laugh nearly as much as I did.
Half my enjoyment came from listening to you laugh the whole time. You were enjoying the hell out of it.
It was so great.
Yeah.
I remembered my hopes being so high 23 years ago when the Dungeons and Dragons movie came out. And I was so disappointed. It was just not good. It was
God bless
very,
you,
very
Jeremy
young.
Irons.
And it was rough on so many levels, and I didn't understand everything at the time. I wasn't a really big player. I was just into the fantasy worlds. And I've seen a couple of like fan films since then. I've seen the gamers films, of course, and those were great. Like they had some really good sense of comedy. This one was all in universe, and it was E1, right? This was owned by Hasbro. This was the Dungeons and Dragons film, and so I tried not to get my expectations really high, and just to see not just Chris Pine doing an amazing caricature of Chris Pine, by the way, like just doing all
What's
of
wrong with
his,
my lips?
his things. So many good things. But like the constant delivery of justice as well, and the completely, I don't even want to pretend that I understand your sense of humor that was coming from Doric, the druid. Like it was just so many good moments. And then the world itself that kept playing with you. I'm waiting. I'm holding my tongue on the paladin, which I think is my favorite character.
Oh yeah, he's one of the best.
But-
Well, let's do this. Let's go through the film.
Okay.
So let's start at just the beginning. We have the intro scene, and there's this whole jail cell, and then them breaking out of the jail cell.
Yeah,
This is our first introduction of the movie.
We're introduced in a snow setting, and a 7-horse carried wagon is pulling a prisoner into a very cool, like Kung Fu Panda jail in the snow, just a towering obelisk of a building.
We're crossing IPs.
Yeah. So what did you guys think of the intro?
Oh, that was great.
I thought it was exactly what DMing is. It was this really fantastic role of the bard being charismatic, trying to talk his way out, being diplomatic, talking about how they're going to get themselves released. And before the result happens, Instead, they immediately pivot and change plans and like, we're going to kidnap the Aracora and fly out the window. Before the DM even finishes his role, it was like, oh, you were pardoned. Oh, it doesn't matter. Okay.
Sounds
We were
about
going to
right.
pardon you. That was a great.
That's
line.
exactly what it reminded me of. I was like, oh, I've run that campaign.
I also like the look of that Aracor guy as it was falling back. He had this weird, like, desperate look in his eyes that was really good.
The practical effects in this movie,
Oh
I
my
thought were
God.
absolutely amazing. The first thing you see is a prisoner coming into the jail, giant hulking, almost minotaur-looking creature, just horrible, mangled, and then the next thing you see is a real dragonborn.
Yes.
And Aarakocra. How do you say that word? The crow thing. Cat folk, all kinds of things. It was amazing.
Okay, from there, I'm just guiding it along. And stop me if you guys want to add anything. From there, he goes, finds his daughter's gone, if I remember correctly, and then they get going to the city to find their buddy has become the little mayor guy.
Yeah.
And then they have a scene with Hugh Grant that, to me, could just as easily been played by you, Jeremy. I could see you in Hugh Grant's role talking about this is blisteringly hot. Yes.
And like going back to it multiple times.
I could totally see you doing that.
For
one.
me, the true menace was when he looked to the little girl and was like, honestly, who makes tea this hot? Like all that
Yeah,
stuff.
we need to have a word.
It was like, oh, he is the villain in this
Yeah,
movie.
but at the same time, like, I didn't think you were going to stick your finger in it. Let's just keep it here for now.
gonna save that for
that's
later.
totally something you would do. I really heard you in that role.
I really like the overshadow of the scene being the Star Wars Empire Strikes Back. It's Vader with the bounty hunter and the heroes on the other side of the table, and that whole play out. And you're like, where are they going to go with this? And they did their thing, but I thought that was pretty slick there. A little healthy dose of betrayal as well.
Right, and that's the thing. We find out that he's the con man, and he actually intended for them to get trapped.
And I'm glad they got that. You know Hugh Grant is going to betray them with the moment you see him on the screen. And
For
it's like,
sure.
please don't say this to the end. Because I know it's going to happen. So gratefully, they did it early.
Yeah, it's saving us from that one. And then, right, they had to leave because now I can't rescue the daughter. We're not going to be taken care of. He's not our friend. How do we get her back? And the Bard starts doing what Bards do, and this is something I really loved about it, is that he's not a fighter. The barbarian is clearly the fighter. He calls himself the planner. I plan things, but really he's the encourager. He's always the salesman, always the pep talk, always gets people going. And the one person he fails to pep talk the most is himself, right? Because he's constantly fighting his own failure. But he's like, okay, didn't work again. Let's try this one. It didn't work again. Let's try this one. And like goes back, finds his prestidigitation sorcerer. And part of his plan is we also need a fourth, right? Ocean's 11 style. Now building up the team and deciding they need the wild mage. And then they find her. And then they find out that's not enough.
I would like to have seen the Bard express beyond song into some of the magical elements that are permitted for a Bard.
Yeah.
I think the reason why is they wanted to avoid the classic cheesy 80s fantasy movies of blue energy versus white energy. And Peter Jackson definitely wanted to avoid that with Lord of the Rings. So that's why Saruman and and Gandalf, when they're fighting in the tower, he said, we're just going to do it physical. I don't want that cheesy stuff. So I think they wanted to avoid magical notes and all that. And that's why you see like this hand that looks cool of reality versus a lot of magical sparkles.
Yeah.
I think that was a visual choice.
I would agree with it. I think it worked out really, really well.
And allowing the other magical people to kind of, like in the one circumstance, you see him playing a long kind of song for these guards to distract them. Turns out it's not actually him. He's being mirror imaged, essentially. So it's not his magic doing the thing, but it's still somewhat magical. But yeah, I agree. The Bard didn't get to use any bardic magic or anything. But he was certainly inspiring.
And we've had a lot of Westerns over the many decades and cop movies over the many decades and war movies. We haven't had a ton of fantasy, but how many do you have your clear lead male character not be the the swashbuckling kick-ass Conan or whatever it is. You don't get that too often. So that was, I agree, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That before we move on, what about our actors? Who could have done a better job than Chris Pine in that role?
Oh my gosh.
Tough question.
I think he did an amazing job.
I think he did an
Yeah.
amazing job.
I think-
I wouldn't. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think having him kind of lead the trail on this movie, he was an executive producer on this movie, so having him being, I'm guessing, a lot in the production, so it could get into his voice in a real way, I think really helped. But yeah, I mean, he's just an amazing actor. You can see the charisma like oozing off the dude. So no matter what he does, it's gonna be good.
And
They did pick a very charismatic human.
And Chris,
yeah.
when you hear this and you want to join us and just a little interview, we can say hi, maybe play. Seth's seats available. We'll definitely throw some softballs
Right here,
your way.
please.
Yeah.
There's comfortable.
Absolutely.
We can even add a small pillow.
I think Michelle Rodriguez, she's always been
Hot.
an amazing actress,
Oh, yes.
staying in her kind of, not staying in her lane, but
Very
she-
much in her lane.
This was her lane, but gave her so much more depth than I'm
Yeah.
used to seeing
Yeah.
in roles that she usually does. She doesn't usually get the death scene. We're at the spoiler section now. Yeah, the emotion that she was bringing out kind of throughout the movie, and it grew as it was going with Chris Pine's daughter, seeing the struggle of her not understanding why he's, not ready to go back yet. Like, we still need one more person, this and that. She's ready to take the tower down now.
Yeah, she always plays. She is the go-to actress for the Hispanic female military
Yeah.
or prisoner type tough girl vibe. And this one, she's still doing the tough girl vibe, but yeah, it was different and fun.
She was one of the few characters who took hits. Like, actually, you could see kind of damage.
She
being
did
hit.
almost all
Yeah.
the fighting.
Yeah.
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 She also played, in my mind, a very low intelligence character without being stupid.
Without being
Yeah.
stupid, I was going to say that I really liked the choice of opposite of Chris Pine, especially since they're a duo, where she's very blunt, very direct, and not necessarily into social cues. I don't do deception. I like the straight up thing. So having that low intelligence without being the I don't get it, like she gets it,
Yeah.
she just doesn't care.
Yeah, her like indifferent body language during certain like pieces was actually perfect when she's just kind of sitting and just kind of like not really paying attention to.
We're abandoning the city.
Yeah, it was very well done on her part. So it was really cool.
The other one I really liked was Hugh Grant. It wasn't a massive role, but it's a very easy role to, I don't know, maybe Jeremy Irons from the original Dungeons and Dragons, eat up the scenery, or have a really big cheesy turn where now he's still it's still the same guy. He's
Yeah.
not evil, but he's not great.
Just not good.
I thought he did a
Pretty
good job
roguish.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. So then they are gathering their group. They're gathering their sorcerer. Then they grab their druid.
Who's an amazing wild mage and can turn into all sorts of fun things.
Constantly.
Oh yeah, there's
Yeah.
an amazing,
Really, really good tiefling.
introduction scene to her where they're Forge's Hugh Grant's character. The army of the city Neverwinter is kind of finding and going into the woods and tearing down the homes of all of these the wood elves, and so this,
The Emerald Enclave.
the Emerald Enclave. So this Tiefling character, played by Sophia Lilith, Doric, is that her name?
Doric, yeah.
Doric.
She's a wild shape, so she can turn into many different creatures. Have we established?
So
There's
many.
worms and owl bears and flies and rats and deer.
I think by rule it's like twice a day for your
Yeah.
wisdom modifier or something like that.
Any other thought? Otherwise, what was after that? Then they realized they need to get into the.
Trying to get into
The
the vault,
vault.
but it has like this really hideous, completely impenetrable spell. Right?
Right.
It's the Bellagio vault.
We
You
see the
can't get
vault
in.
at that time, and that's where Forge is talking with the Red Wizard and the nobles and all of the rich people from kind of outside the city start coming into the city because Forge, Hugh Grant's character, has brought back this festival to ream gold and all this stuff from the town for the townspeople, quote unquote. And so he's showing these rich people the vaults.
And that scene, if I can interject,
yeah,
had
please.
one of the most simplistic jokes that I really liked. And it was,
Oh.
now she will describe in detail how this is, and she just drops
How our
half a
vault is
sentence.
locked.
It
This
was
is
like,
the Arcane Doom lock seal of
That also reminds me maybe something you would do if when I might feed you something as vessel or something. Describe your trial of Solid.
Yes, it is a lot.
All right.
We should mention
It's
this
a door.
film is set in the Forgotten Realms campaign setting.
Sword,
Sword Coast.
Sword Coast.
Yeah.
Which is Forgotten Realms.
Forgotten Realms, yeah.
Just in case if you
Yeah, but
hear
we don't bother with the
familiar
other parts of
terms and-
Forgotten Realms.
Yeah.
Just Sword Coast.
And
It's
some
not
of
a
the
home
playroom.
Baldur's Gate.
thing.
I got so excited. I was like, I want to see Baldur's Gate.
I saw, you mentioned Baldur's Gate and Waterdeep. Those
Yeah,
are
and
the two
Waterdeep.
officials that
Oh,
came up.
Waterdeep
The
would've
official
been great.
for Waterdeep and Baldur's Gate. I was like, oh my god.
So for you,
They teased us with the pan down the map on the coastline. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
No.
I think it's interesting. If I remember, it's in there or not. Gary Gygax found this package. I think we mentioned this once before. A package of disgusting little creature animal things of toys from Japan, if I remember right. And then he had these and he used them as miniatures for early editions of what would become D&D. So things like what a rust monster is, and I believe a overly hunched over beaky thing he said is an owlbear type shape. So to come from those random
That's
trinkets
Yeah.
all the way through everything to appear on this map of a modern day movie was kind of interesting to me. Weird. What was after that? So now they're going after this helmet, right?
Right. So they need this
They
helmet.
Paladin.
Right. They need the helmet, which they're trying to find because that's the only way you could dispel this super magic lock.
Vault.
And they're like, there's no way we can't find it. It was lost over 100 years ago. Right. It would happen in this battle. And then the bard walks away, walks back, and suddenly the party has an answer. Like right away.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we had this conversation. My ancestors fought in that battle. They did? Yeah. If only we could talk to them. Well, we can't. They're dead. Actually, we can. And so they go into the cemetery.
Does that right there, is that lame, boring, or easy screenwriting? Or is that the kind of crap we might do where someone say, my ancestor, I made that history roll. And is that simulating that? Or is it both?
I would say it's I would definitely think that's something we would do. Not only for the a really good history roll, but like, well, actually, I have an item that I've been holding on to for 7 episodes or for since we leveled up 2 times ago that lets me ask questions of the dead.
and I would say it could be lazy if not for the setup that was the joke. In actuality, they didn't raise one person from the dead. They raised about 7 people from the. They raised a bunch of people because they just weren't getting these answers. So that was one of the trailer clips that was going around. That was pretty popular.
I would expand on the scenario. Yes, it's something we would do, or could approach, because full freedom. But it wouldn't be limited to a particular scene. What we were looking at would probably be like, 9 weeks to get the legendary helmet of X, all the while being bombarded with, yes, but there's a young lady over here in distress that we need help. That kind of.
There were not enough side quests.
Yeah, there were not enough
in
side
my
quests.
experience with D&D.
We got 0 side quests with this. It
For
was
me
just
as a
our
game master, be all right. So they're gonna go get the helm, and then they'll speak to the dead. No, they now having to go to each of these guys because they're not asking the right questions.
yeah.
We're now 2 sessions in. Now we're going to the. This would just take like 12 movies just to get to the helm.
Honor Amongst
part.
Thieves Part 3
Yeah.
coming in 2027.
I say
We're still in the cemetery.
still in the cemetery.
I absolutely I consider the helm to be the side quest, right? We know what our initial quest is. We know what our end goal is. The bad guy is getting revenge, getting the party together. All right, do that. Nope, can't do that. Okay, got it. Let's do this way instead. Getting the helmet. Can't do that either by ourselves. It was picked up by a paladin 100 years ago, and he hid it from the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Fucking great. 100 years ago, right? And then everyone, same deal. Make a history check. Everyone rolls a 19. Actually, I've heard of him. Yeah. Oh, I know him. Yeah. No, he was a hero in my tribe. Oh, he was a hero in our lands.
I passed it to him. Who passed it to him? Who passed it to
Yeah.
him?
Yeah. And so this 100-year-old paladin still lives, still saving the day. Everyone knows of him, and they go and find him.
And
Was
then,
it the same person?
Yeah.
Because we saw him in the flashback scene.
Yeah.
So while they're
right.
digging up these bodies, we see the carnage of the battle that they're kind of describing and stuff. And while that's happening, I think it's at that same time. It's around the same time. We go back to the castle and we see the Red Wizard, and she is having a memory of what happened those 100 years ago, if I remember correctly. And
Or
or no, I'm sorry. She's having a conversation with somebody who Christopher mentioned just earlier. She's having a conversation with a shadow figure. I can't remember if I wrote that name down.
Like
Saztam.
It says damn, yeah.
Saztam. And he's kind of telling her what her charge is, of how I'm going to get this. I can't remember the item's name now that it's coming to me. They have this horn.
Horn of goodness.
Yes.
Horn
That's exactly
of,
that's
horn
going to
of
be
badness.
Horn of gentle passing.
And so this paladin, who we are about to meet, he's involved in the history of this horn. So the most powerful red wizard kind of led a coup against the other council and brainwashed and or poisoned the members of their kind of society. And so we know that this is kind of the ultimate rosebud, if you will. The ultimate.
Well, this is all awful
person.
because it's just giving Tom ideas on ways to screw us over.
And so they have to go find the helmet, and so they meet our paladin.
But right, it also gives us a history of what Thane is, right? Thane, when we skipped right over the backstory that the Bard told of how he got into prison, and he was supposed to be this good harper, but he was taking out a red wizard of Thane, and everyone from Thane, according to
I think
the
it's Thay.
Thay?
They're Thayen, excuse me. They're from Thay, right? So all of Thay, though, is cursed. All of Thay is undead. It is this horrible land full of evil wizards and evil darkness, and they're always something that needs to be kept at the border or taken out of Faerun.
Just one quick thing. One of my favorite scenes, just attaching to that, because it goes beyond just being the wizards who are Thayans and all that. Even though the wizard lady was there and she was acting on behalf of the Neverwinter, when she revealed herself, her own guard said, "They're Thayans!" and instantly get killed. So I love that the faction was still very strong against them, that kind of thing. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, but right to that point, like everyone knows Thays are bad, period. So when they talk about this great paladin who saved him, he was a Thayan paladin, he immediately shuts it down. And he's like, nope, well, that's never going to work. Yeah. Because that's clearly not going to be a thing.
When they're looking at all the speaking the dead, and I love the druid's comment, well, that seems rather arbitrary.
You get 5 questions?
Yeah, and they keep asking, and then the ramifications of over asking or under asking I thought was really cool. But my favorite dead guy was the heroic guy who died in the bathtub the morning.
Just fell over.
Yeah, I died. I thought that was great.
Morning of battle.
So then they go underground looking for this helmet. They find the helmet. Some bad guy, Thay guys show up. We get another great sword action scene, which is fun. I wish it doesn't have to be R-rated, but I wish we could get blood, a little bit of blood in there.
Yeah.
Slitting the guy's throat with a clean blade again. Ugh.
I've always wondered
They were already dead,
if
though,
and when
so.
they're going to
Yeah.
get
But
rid of
everyone
that
was like that.
stigma in the industry.
Yeah.
I think it's coming.
And then after that, they're climbing up to this thing, and we have a classic dragon now coming out that's struggling for some reason
It's
to
a fat dragon.
to get through this hole. And as Alistair says, it's this fat Toby dragon. Was hilarious.
Oh, my God.
What a nice take on that.
Reminded me of my cat.
Yeah.
I mean, not just a fat dragon, but like it moved like it was fat. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
fly after you. It slides down the mountain on its
roll
belly.
around.
Yeah.
Just trying to pick you up as it goes.
The moment where it was sliding and then it lost any control that it had.
It just rolled with it.
I was just like, these guys are applying real physics to
Yeah.
this.
Great.
And
That
the
was
fact
delightful.
that it just always had its mouth open, just waiting
Yeah.
to catch whatever it
Hungry,
could.
hungry hippo.
Oh, yeah.
This sets up, like you guys were saying, the prestidigitation. His only trick that he can confidently use, Simon, our sorcerer. They go underwater. They feel the explosion coming, and Edwin, Chris Pine's character, tells him, "Believe in yourself. You can do it." everyone get down, and they just go and they.
Which is another counter to your expectations of the classic D&D Red Dragons breathing fire.
Yeah.
And it didn't unless it could get some additional help. I think it just did it twice
Yeah.
when it could get help.
It was trying to breathe fire, and it
Yeah.
looked like it was like, you could see it sparking, but I think
Yeah.
because it was so fat, it
Got
couldn't,
some
like,
CO got some
it was
COPD.
actually
It was
breathe
some
the
long
fire.
out of breath.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
And he couldn't- and so, but I love the sparking feature
Yeah.
in it because it was like, oh, here it comes, he's out of breath, and then you would just move on to the next scene. Well,
He
that
rolled
was-
a D4, and it's going to
Yeah,
take
exactly.
4 rounds.
That was the play level I was thinking of. I was like,
Speaking of which,
Breath
and
weapons
this
activate.
kind of covers the whole movie as it is. They really resisted the urge, where I probably wouldn't have, of using any kind of die anywhere.
Yeah.
Any kind of die. And
Even
I was
the
I was just
gambling thing they were doing.
yeah,
with
they were
little
doing something else,
Yeah.
just tokens and whatnot. I was waiting for some symbology, some icon to pop up. Totally resisted. I thought that was a pretty
Yep.
cool step.
After that was not my favorite, probably my least favorite part of the movie, and that was outside on the beach, and it's the standard beat of, well, we're beaten, we can't go on, and let's split apart, and we're at our lowest, and then no, let's rise up and go, and then the sorcerer has that ancestor thing. It just seemed to really slow down for me at that point. It was okay, but just didn't match the rest of the film for me.
Yeah,
I think
that
they needed that in order for him to have, then
his character growth.
scene.
Yeah.
where
They
he
could have
does
shortened
attune.
that a little bit.
They mentioned
but
a
then-
rest. He took
Yeah.
a rest.
It was a little
was
long,
long.
like a short rest there.
They woke him up.
But
They
he
woke
was
him
trying to attune the helmet
Yeah.
the whole
Oh,
time.
my
He would have
goodness.
been. He would have had fatigue 1.
The scene to what I agree is my favorite character, the lawful paladin walking straight.
He's just gonna keep going.
Is he going to keep going? There's a rock.
But there's a rock there. Surely he's
Yeah.
gonna go around. No, he's gonna go right over the rock.
There was a joke right before that when Chris Pine says goodbye and he
Oh,
says,
it's-
"You're absolutely wonderful."
You're better at everything than talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
other than
he
talking,
breaks
yeah.
into like a wisdom
It's-
checked soliloquy, and he interrupts him and says,
There were
goodbye.
Yeah, oh yeah.
so we meet this paladin character, and he's the most he's confident, he's regal, he's a paladin.
He's gorgeous.
He's gorgeous,
He's-
and he knows no irony. He literally says, "Irony is a blade used." Like,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
ruins those
That-
wheels.
yeah, that
and then
was-
and then Chris Pine goes, "Is it like really?"
Just
I know
because
who
that
Chris's
sentence
least
is
favorite character
Is
was.
symmetrical
Symmetrical.
doesn't mean it's not nonsense.
Yeah.
But they set up that whole design for that character as the trope for every lawful paladin, which I just love the way they did that. They
Yeah.
didn't flesh him out too much.
One note.
They kept his character was just very much in a box and played that way, and I thought it was a great little.
To me, he
Comic
was
strip.
the DM character that's added to the party. Right, for this particular scene, like the DM, like, and now we have a paladin, and whenever we come in, like the DM plays that role,
Oh,
and so it's always this like 100% lawful good, like doesn't quirk, doesn't actually mesh with the team. The whole team actually kind of hates that you're here, but we really need you, and you are better at everything than us.
Yeah,
and
Yeah,
then
there's neutral good,
and-
lawful
right,
good, and that
the
just
lawful good, like,
rubs.
oh, that's so uncomfortable. And then once we get the thing done, like, you know what, you should probably join us. We need you in our team. No,
No.
this is your request. I'm done. Like, oh shit.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It was completely perfect.
After that, we got into our heist portion of the movie where they're setting up this portal stuff in a wagon and getting into a treasure. And
That was really cool.
yeah, they're
was really
planning, but they're also not revealing kind of everything that they're doing. And to me, there's a pro and a con to that whole concept. It relied too heavily on the portal gun for my liking because that it's so powerful.
Hither, thither one.
Yeah, it's just a little it's a little too much. I would have rather see them do more. I don't know, more
Cloak and
mundane or
dagger.
more stumbling or something like that. Versus, hey, here's like the perfect possible tool to pull this off. On the other hand, though, that whole scene does simulate the what the hell are the players doing kind of stuff. Like, oh
Yeah.
my god, is
'Cause it
this
doesn't-
actually
even
going to
though-
work?
Like it's not going to plan. The picture gets put on the
Yeah.
face down on the floor, and there's
Or just
the
that
mirror
players
falls
would
off the
ever
bottom.
think to do
That you would
this
think
with
that would-
that. I thought
yeah.
was really captured that really well.
Yeah.
And they like almost get caught. He's like sliding under the wagon in the portal, and
or,
they can't.
Or her holding onto the legs and waving. I mean, that's freaking.
That's Avius.
Avius dragging the puppet across the street in season 1.
You should sue.
All right, and then after that, they're breaking in. They're having trouble. They get caught, and then they get tossed into this arena.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And the arena was
Classic arena.
the
yeah.
classic arena with other classic players. You
that was
Yeah.
so
Oh my
I
God.
was freaking out. There's a whole other team in there
There's
that was
there's three teams.
there were
total.
three
Uh-huh.
teams total,
Yeah.
right? And there was one that I identified right off the bat, which was the exact characters out of the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon,
Yeah.
Fantastic.
and
Yep.
and like they were spitting images. They were spot on. They did such a great job with them, and they had no lines. But we just kept cutting to them as they were picking up the axe
Finding
at the
the axe,
barbarian,
yeah.
and then they get through, and they're running away from danger, and they somehow made it. They were the first ones in. And then our team discovered we don't want to actually win this. Good luck, you win. Like, they had to go find out another way.
Yeah,
But my-
he was like, if we go in there, we will all die. And they're all just like, what?
What?
My classic dwarf, my guy was a badass in that.
Yep.
He just needed a few more rounds to
Yep.
improve himself.
There's a
He looked great.
there's
too.
something I've been
Oh, yeah.
meaning to bring up that I haven't brought up. I don't know. Were they dwarves? Were they halfling? Bradley Cooper is in this
Halfling.
movie.
Halfling.
Yeah, Bradley Cooper was a halfling.
That was the most genius use of forced perspective. It wasn't at all forced perspective, but they wanted you to think it kind of
Oh,
was.
and then
But-
it was
oh my
Tim
gosh.
laughing at the very end where she eyes the half
Yeah.
hour and
Oh my
with that little
gosh.
can't wait to eat them up.
Very-
Yes.
Very
The
strong.
halfling characters.
It was
And
totally
very,
it was
very
totally me and my ex.
And then the hands of
said that
Bradley
during the
Cooper.
You said
Oh
that
my
during
God.
the movie.
When, right,
I'm the halfling and she's the big barbarian.
we've seen the handshake happen 3 different times in the film. Like there's always a hand offered up, palm up, and then the other hand clasping down. So when Holga was saying her final goodbye to what was it, Melman?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Her husband, who was the halfling, he's reaching out with the little teeny child's hand, and her hand reaches
Yeah.
down and grabs it.
What were you when that exact moment's happening? Are you thinking what I'm thinking when their hands are touching?
I
There's
don't
no
think
way you get
so.
a wedding ring on that.
How does it work?
Yeah, physically,
How
what's going on?
does it work?
Yeah, but I love
jumps
that
in.
the
Yeah, I mean, you can get a good half a halfling in there, you know?
He's very good at kind of like
we're talking Bradley Cooper here, and he's pulling off not just I had time with Holga.
right.
I have
Who's
this
bigger?
other lady who was
Yeah.
just massive as
Another
well.
massive barbarian.
Remember, he had the hither wand.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
So going back to the arena question: how tall were these arena sliding walls? Best
much too
guess.
high.
Like the classic 20-foot, I think.
No.
Is.
No way.
Oh yeah.
30
You
or
Grant said they
30.
were much too high. It's
No,
50 at least.
I'm thinking 50.
Yeah, 50,
or
60
more.
feet.
So if you have 50-foot walls that have a 10-foot space in between them,
Yeah.
doesn't seem like much of a spectator sport to me.
Well, most of the seats, if you looked at the arena, there were no seats ground level.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There
it
were
was all
no,
high
there were
up
no
over the wall.
club. They were all like
I
in
don't
the
think you're seeing
300s and
anything.
higher.
But also the center in the sky where the nobles were sitting.
That's
Yeah.
the box
right
seats.
above it.
That's
It's
just
box
the
seats,
box
but that's
seats.
blocking half the stadium for people trying to look in.
You know, then just be a noble.
Yeah.
I
All
will.
right.
Like, don't
Yeah.
be a
Well,
peasant.
I
Just
will
be
go
a
to
noble.
the
Quit
I'll be a
being a
noble.
peasant.
Okay.
Stop being a
magical
whore.
boot straps.
The cat creature in the arena called?
Displacer beast.
Yes.
Thing.
That's a displacer
That was
beast.
cool.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. I like
Again,
Yeah.
didn't use displacer beast technology.
It did.
They did.
It did,
That
twice.
was
They
that was
didn't.
the
They all just
No, there
Walked
was
around
only
and-
one.
There was one displaying its
yeah. There was the one, but there was the wildling one. Who got her powers back and she became a
No,
displacer.
but before that, it was also because that's how your dwarf guy got killed. 'Cause
He saw it coming around the corner.
oh
and he
yeah, that's
swung-
right.
it
Yeah,
was
Yeah.
they did on
Yeah.
that one.
It was
Yeah,
a mirage.
you used it twice. You
Alright.
also used it on the Bard, right? And then Holga jumped through
Yeah.
the Mirage,
And
pulled him
grabbed him.
out right before they got hit by it.
Oh, I thought it was the wilding came through.
No.
No.
No, it was,
Okay.
Oh.
Well, then I take it.
And a
back.
mimic showed up.
Yeah.
Classic
Nothing wrong with the mimic.
chest
Classic
mimic.
mimic.
And it was almost like a cameo. It was like really
Yeah,
quick,
right.
you know?
It's really like,
That's how
yeah,
I felt
yeah,
about
everybody.
that whole scene. You were just
Yeah.
mentioning them picking up the axe. It was a perfect shot, looking at the chest, and they come in. Oh, ho! You know, like, it was great.
Taking off that too, another overall picture of the film. They didn't rely too heavily on magic items across the board, so it wasn't like every chest they delved into magic acts of such and such. It was just a regular battle axey kind of thing. The sword she pulls out, I was expecting it light on fire or something crazy. It was a basic sword, so they didn't just dump
over the
magic
top.
Even
items.
the paladin had like a runic symbols on his sword.
I
that glowed
elbowed
up at
him
one
when he
point.
did that, and I'm like, he's doing some sort of little channeling paladin.
Yeah,
power
yeah.
there. Little smite
Like
action.
they
Yeah.
had the green
Yeah.
energy, and he had the.
But
Whatever
again-
the radiant damage is that.
Really super high level paladin against a really super high level ancient, really
Undead.
undead assassin, and they both have really high level magical items.
Who
Yeah,
can't? Are you ready
You
for
earned it at
another
that
bout?
point.
Like that was really cool. He was like, "It's
Yeah.
not as easy if they can't die." Like,
All right, so then they defeat the maze. They realize the treasure's on a boat. They get to the boat. Hugh Grant finally turns on the girl, and they get away.
They get away. They did
and
it.
the movie's all done.
and then Red Mist.
right, and that's the thing, right?
Blue mist appeared. What was that?
What must appear? That'd be great.
The Red Wizard. So they all are common names that they changed just a little bit. Seraphine, I think, was her name.
Sophina.
Sophina.
Is it Sorfina?
Sophina.
Okay. Sophina then activates the horn just like we saw in the flashback that was given to us that happened in Thay, and she's going to make all of Neverwinter undead.
This is the real reason the tournament is, or the
whole reason
thing's
the
being
tournament
held.
was run, the whole con that was happening to the con man, and so, well, shit.
That was great. Yeah, I heard you laughing big time on
The
that.
heroes
Has that
decide-
happened in our game at all?
I say it at least once an episode.
I think
I love that
there was. I mean, that's why we were leaving Mirskan for so long.
Uh huh.
Yeah.
Right.
Like we were trying to leave Mirskan in season 3 early on. Oh,
And you
but,
get away, and then you. Oh, okay.
But there's something
But we
that
have to
actually
take
needs
care
to
of this.
Yeah.
So now we'll leave Mirskan. No, we
No,
gotta
there's still
deal
another
with
one that
this.
says we need to
Right,
square
now
up.
we're gonna go. No, we gotta do.
We need some plants.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they move out of whatever would have been the chaotic neutral thing that they come in and be good. And they fight the wizard. And that we were talking about this earlier, like such a good level of fighting. Like the fact that one boss is in the middle, everyone attacks one after
yeah,
the
that
other,
quick,
one after
fast
the other.
action.
That was a
Quick,
cool
fast.
scene.
Nice
You
done.
see
Really
cool
3
scene.
hits get through, but 4 different misses happen. She hits back with this one. Like it was so good.
You see, like what I took to be a concentration spell.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was
Being
just
held,
gonna
she
say
can't
that.
do
Yeah.
anything.
It was she was concentrating on the
stone
power
dragon.
stone dragon,
Yeah.
and then when I was thinking about that,
Yeah.
she got knocked down.
She got
Yeah.
knocked down, and the
It's
dragon
the
turned
slingshot
back.
I'm
to
wondering
stone.
if anyone else who's intrigued about the movie but doesn't know D&D that well would be confused by that at all.
Maybe a little
there's a
bit.
vast majority who don't care, and a bunch know
I feel-
D&D.
But
Yeah.
they did a classic edit of something happens to her, snap to the
All right.
creature
Yeah.
right away.
Right, and they did show her like putteering, right? Like
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah,
right,
they did
yeah,
that
yeah,
as
wait,
well.
and now you see her hand doing the manipulation. So
Yeah,
But-
yeah, they set it up pretty well.
yeah,
visually, it was a great.
Yeah, and I think there were 2 concentration spells cast.
That can't be. You can't have two concentrations.
In different scenes.
Technically, she
scenes.
cast 2 spells and one was not a cantrip. So I'm going
And in different scenes, and I don't know that she had cast the other one, but like I really liked the concentration, the way they played that mechanic, and it was cool. It was cool. Yeah.
And having again the wild shape just attacking that creature until it's disposed of, and then another magic ability. We see the loved mage hand appear, but evil mage hand,
Mm-hmm.
and then out of nowhere a stone mage hand appears, and Simon helps save. Was it Doric at that point?
Yeah.
yeah.
He like broke up their fight. Who broke up the other fight? But yeah, constant action in those moments.
And
Yeah.
the phrase at the end when she tries to stop them all with the first trap that we found out about, the one that got everyone trapped in prison, she does the time bomb. And this time, I got better. He didn't say I leveled up, but with totally what he did, right? He's a leveled up sorcerer. Like, yeah, my spell goes off a lot better this time.
Well, he did say I countered.
Yeah, we counterspell, right? He tried to
counterspell.
counterspell
Oh, I
both
gotta-
times,
I
and the
don't
first time he couldn't
remember
do
that.
it.
Yeah, he said
It,
countered.
This time-
it was a very brief moment. They executed that really,
Yeah.
really well. In that he was doing it, and it looked like he stopped. And then, of course, Chris Pine played it off really well.
All right, I have a question. With a little setup. Years ago, a little movie with Michael Caine and Steve Martin called Dirty Rotten Scoundrels came out.
Yeah.
A fun comedy. In the trailer, they have a bunch of funny jokes from the trailer, and then they have a scene where Michael Caine or Steve Martin's walking along like a Venice dock thing and just nudges an old lady right into the water, just to show you how evil they are. But it's never in the movie. And then they asked him, and Steve Martin's like, oh, I guess they cut that from the movie. And for some reason, that stuck with me as the only scene that was ever in a trailer that was not in a movie. And I'm wondering, is there like a legal reason, blah, blah, blah. And I mention all this because I kept waiting to hear Chris Pine deliver the speech from the trailer of, we stole something from the trailer. We stole something from a bad guy, and he actually turned out to be the evilest bad guy of all time, and now we have to save the world. But that never came about. Or did I miss something? Or
No, it wasn't
part
in the
of the
movie.
trailer. All right.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably just a line that they had, and it didn't make the.
I've seen like a couple trailers like that. Yeah, that like
It's pretty common practice.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's the
Yeah.
only one I know of.
I can also tell you from my own experience being in film, the amount of film and scenes that are shot are typically twice as many, sometimes three times as many as actually
sure.
make it into the film. So there's entirely likely that scene was completely shot not for the trailer, but for some part of a setup or some part of the conversation, that they changed the story partway through, and they're like, nope, we're gonna change this element, change this element.
can
and
think
bring
of
these
a-
in.
and the marketing team made the trailer. And
Well,
yeah.
in the 2012 movie Avengers, there's a line that Robert Downey says in the trailer. It's the same line. He says it in the movie, but he says it in a completely different tone than
Oh.
the trailer, and it's a completely different meaning because he says it in a completely different way. And I remember vividly watching the trailer being like, oh, that's going to be a really cool moment. And then he says it in the movie. I'm like, oh, that wasn't cool. It was like the billionaire, playboy, philanthropist thing. But he says it in a really like cocky way in the trailer. He's like, genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
All right. How about let's go around the table. If you were to give it a rating out of 1 out of 10 or any other stipulations, how would you rate the movie, Tim?
2 thumbs up.
2 thumbs up from
Wow.
Tim.
Wow, both of them.
Siskel and Ebert rating.
Yeah,
Nice.
I'd say 8.5 out of 10.
All
It's definitely solid.
I give it both of my bardic inspirations.
Ooh.
I give it a 9 out of 10. I'd
9.
say.
I would say on total overall scope of movies, I think it'd be a solid 8, but for what it is, an action fun thing, a 10 out of 10, I would definitely see it again and enjoy a sequel.
Well, I guess I'm the hard-bitten critic.
Do it.
I'd give it a 7.5 box popcorn.
All right. Jeremy?
It's a 19 out of 20. Like, it's not a full critical hit,
But it's pretty high.
It's pretty damn high.
But if you had the right feet, it could be a
Yeah.
critical still.
there are
Wrong system.
you guys, I loved this movie a lot, and there are a few movies that I laugh at all the time, or I really get into the story over and over again. Scott Pilgrim versus the World makes me giggle like a child the entire film. I love it. It's so funny. This film, I think, tops that with my level of entertainment that I had for it. I'm absolutely gonna rewatch it again.
Yeah.
Well, this
And
is
I'm
hitting
sure-
all
I'm
the
gonna buy it.
squares,
I'm-
right? This is our alley.
And I'm sure watching it again, you'll pick up more homages to D&D.
Oh, yeah.
And I
Oh, yeah.
and I
Now I
felt
think
and I
so.
felt like there were several other homages to different things. I felt like some MC Universe, maybe some World of Warcraft. There were a couple other pieces because, like at the end when
The barrel.
what?
Are you talking about the barrel scene where she's like?
Yeah, where she's slamming. Yeah,
that reminded
that
me.
was
That
like the
reminded
whole-
me of
definitely
the
that.
Hulk and Loki. Yeah.
And when they're underneath in the big cavern with the lava and stuff, that's very much
Is that Doom?
deep rock. Oh, it's like deep something cavern in for World of Warcraft Classic.
Oh.
Deep Rock Fathom or something, or Chasm, but I mean that's what it looked like to me, and maybe that
Black Rock
wasn't
Caverns.
Black Rock Caverns. Thank you.
Yeah, there you
and
go.
maybe that wasn't the intent, but I was like, oh, that's what it would look like in real life. So I think there were pieces of some other things in there that they gave a little nod to as well.
I had a half moment I was expecting to see some drow, so going back
Yeah.
to the Underdark and seeing, like, I would just love to count up all the creatures that I saw, the cockatrice that was in there, the giant spiders, all the other ones that I was like, oh my gosh, I know what these creatures are. Like, just flip through a monster manual as
Yep.
I'm watching. Like, it'd be super fun. So yeah, not quite the critical hits, but shoot, right damn near.
I could feel the directors mentioned in some interviews that it was inspired by like Princess Bride and Lord of the Rings.
Oh, my God.
Obviously, those things. I could feel those movies popping through the screen.
What scene was that where Chris was totally being like Dread Pirate Roberts in his responses and everything?
Yeah.
Like, Oh,
I don't know.
Would be the cottage scene
I think it.
where it's the whole, yeah, it's the Buttercup and Wesley relationship.
Even at the beginning when he's like talking about his pardon stuff, that was like kind of
Yeah,
the back
yeah,
and
a
forth.
little
'Cause,
bit.
yeah.
There's a big thing we didn't talk about in that. What is his motivation for doing all this stuff? And he's trying to find this talisman of resurrection, essentially, so that he can bring back his wife, who the Red Wizards killed.
Well, I'm hoping anyone watching this already knows that.
I imagine so.
Otherwise,
They're in a
We're going
lot
for
of
full
trouble.
spoilers.
A lot of
Yeah.
trouble. All right, how about one more time around? Any final thoughts about the movie, Tim? You want to share?
No, I was looking forward to watching it. Glad I did. Looking forward to taking my daughter to go see it as well.
Yeah, a lot of fun. We'll definitely see it when it comes out on video handful of times, I'm sure.
Great.
I've been a big fan of Justice Smith, who played Simon, for a few years now. He's been in a lot of Netflix shows. I'm really happy to see him get some bigger commercial stuff. I'm definitely going to go be seeing this again with my fiance in the movies.
For me, this movie, leaving it, captured the surprised fun that I had when I left Galaxy Quest. I was not expecting this to be that good. I was keeping my expectations neutral and ready for it to be cheesy and just okay. And it really exceeded my expectations.
I got stung on the first Dungeons & Dragons, so naturally I was hesitant on this one. I was pleasantly surprised. I would very much love to see a grittier version of this when Quentin Tarantino takes the reins.
Oh,
And Jeremy?
I'm hopeful for another one. I'm excited to watch this one. I will probably watch it 20 times, and it got me excited to play. I think that was the biggest thing. Like just watching it and seeing the action back and forth. I was like, I want to jump into a game right now, and I'm hoping a lot of people have the same reaction for that.
I agree.
Perfect segue. We're going to roll right into it now.
Let's go.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us on this special review episode. We had a lot of fun going to the movie and sharing this with you. And let us know what your thoughts are, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Great.